Okay, I'd like to call this meeting, the budget hearing for the Law Department to order. We have a presentation by Mr. Moore, and I'll let you go ahead and do that presentation. Since we have scheduled time, we must start on time.
Well, I appreciate that. My thought was that we should start out by looking at some of the big picture things first. Get an overall sense of what's happening with the city and finances and what our overarching goals are. The first thing I wanted to talk about was the goals that the City Council adopted, I believe was in October. About the first objective was to attack crime and blight. The second one was to reverse the population decline. Third one was to revitalize the city's business environment. The fourth one was to facilitate entrepreneurial activity in the city of Flint. Fifth one was to encourage land ownership by current homeowners and residents. Sixth, modernize the city's transportation and energy infrastructure. The seventh was to update the city's water and transportation infrastructure. Eighth was to address the city's pension and legacy cost. And ninth was to review the City Hall Metroplex. Should we be looking at trying to replace City Hall? They're different. Some of the goals that you established are long-term, others are more short-term. We do try to address those in this budget. Some of the big things that affect the budget are the pension contribution. The city historically has had been underfunded in its pension, and if we did nothing in this current fiscal year, our contribution for the pension system would have increased from about $31 million a year to approximately $50 million a year. And that obviously dominates all conversations that we have with the budget, is how do we address the pension. Fortunately, this year we were able to address that. We did receive some outside funding. We received some funding from the state of Michigan, which will bring our pension contribution from the $30 million, which I talked about, down to $20 million. That's a huge saving grace for the city of Flint. The other thing, the city's property tax millage will not be changed. The city is at the maximum amount that we can levy for property taxes, so we cannot raise taxes. We are where we are. We are looking at trying to increase the enforcement of the income tax. That's one place where we can increase revenue, is making sure that everybody that owes city taxes is paying their city taxes. The other item, which is a big concern for the city, is what's referred to as OPEB, other post-employment benefits. For the city of Flint, that means retiree health care. And I'll have a couple slides on that because that will address that. The issue with the OPEB is that we have a huge liability out there, and we need to be able to address that and solve that problem. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. Next, we're looking at the tax-reverted property. The city owns some homes that were acquired by the city about 5 years ago. We're looking at trying to find out a way to either sell that back to people that live there, or find other people that want to buy the property, or do something with it, because right now it's taking staff time and money from the city. We ought to figure out a way to return those to the tax roll. And then the last issue, this is one that I know that the City Council has talked about frequently, is how do we attract key employees? We're having a hard time getting some positions filled, and we need to look at ways that we can get the people that we need for the different positions. I mentioned that the pension liability, when the year started on July 1st, our pension liability was approximately 29% funded. The state of Michigan, in the end of August, gave us $170 million, and then there's first part of this month, we're supposed to receive another $2 million, which should get us up to being 60% funded. And that's a big deal for us. We're not out of the woods, we still have to be careful, but it does make life a lot more manageable for our community and for managing our finances. Just to give you show you the pension system had some major changes around, I believe it was 2010, 2012. I'm not exactly sure the exact date that occurred, but the legacy system continued to see an increase as people were retiring. If you look at, there's one thing you should pay attention for this scale. It doesn't go all the way down to zero, and that's because if it went down to zero, you wouldn't be able to see that. In 2019, we've hit the inflection point where we're no longer continuing to increase, we're beginning to decrease. And that will happen. The legacy system will eventually run out as people live their lives, their pensions are used up. We've still got a long ways to go for that, but we have reached the inflection point. And so we anticipate that the cost of that will continue to decrease over time at this point. If you look at the lives covered, you can see that the blue lives are the ones that were people who were employees of the city, but and were vested in the system and then left the city employed or maybe still working with the city. They're not receiving the pension yet. They will be eligible for it when they reach the age that's specified in their contracts. The green lives are people that are already retired. And if you look at this, you can see the green lives are decreasing over time. The blue lives, because they're younger people, that stayed pretty much the same. If you look at OPEB, we have a very similar inflection point. 2019, we peaked. 2020, our costs have started to decrease. And that's pretty significant because right now we're about $100 million in liability there. Just a couple, in 2020 we were at 250 million. So that has decreased, and that does impact our budget and how much we have to spend. So that's a bright light in our budget. Next I was going to talk about some of the major revenue sources for the general fund. As we talk about the other funds like the water, street funds, the trash fund, we'll talk about the revenues in those discussions, but for the majority of the departments, they're funded by the general fund, so it's important that you understand how we get the revenue and what the trend looks like. Our income tax is slightly increasing. It's been going up, but not at a very high rate. We do anticipate that to change once the state of Michigan starts processing our income tax returns for us. They have tools that we don't have that they can collect better. They just have a lot more sources of data and tools that they can work with to solve that. The state shared revenue is the second biggest source of revenue that we have, and that's, again, has been increasing, but a lower level. If you look at 2020, you'll notice that we have a dip down there, and that's because after the census, they drew it up at year end, so they were paying us at what our previous census numbers were, and then they reduced it to what the 2020 census had, and we've been increasing slightly since then. The Flint property tax is the third largest source of revenue for us. Our general fund collects just under $7 million now. You'll see a drop there, and that's not really I'm using the state charter of accounts, and I'm defining things the way the state defines things. Prior to that, we had a payment in lieu of taxes from the water and sewer funds. After that, we did not have that, and that's why you see the step down. And the state defines the payment in lieu of taxes as being a property tax on their chart of accounts. But the good news from the city of Flint is that the taxable value for the city is increasing. We're anticipating that to increase again next year. And it's hard to understate how important that is for us, because even though we have a lot of vacant property, a lot of houses that have been reverted to the county, overall, the value for the city has been increasing. And the last major source of service we have is for charges for services.
I'm a little confused because our time is limited. I thought yours was not until next Tuesday. And so we
can do it however you want. You're the council.
Yeah, because we have less than 45 minutes to do the legal department, and yours is a huge.
Right. I was just trying to set the stage so you understood some of the dynamics.
No disrespect
but
to you, Mr. Moore.
I'll do it however you want.
Yeah,
you're the
normally
council.
that has been done years prior. I get what you're saying, the overall view, but we have a limited time. It was 1 hour for the legal department.
I would have no problem staying an extra 15 minutes or so, or 20 minutes.
I know they have been a hard cut.
It's just
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. If
Yeah, and
I'll-
I want to hear everything
no.
because I got a million questions for you. And if I get into it,
No.
we won't get to legal.
the budget, you get to decide what you want and how you want to do it, and I'll adapt to whatever the council wants for that.
Now, you've got the Flint charges for service. Can we just skip to the law department one and the
Sure.
and then we can do, yeah, it was the next page anyways.
Okay, the way I've laid these out, I'm just going to, and I've done this for all the different departments, is our budget overall is a status quo budget. There's not much change in the budgets, but even though we haven't changed much of the budgets, the departments are doing a lot of things. They are changing some of the things they're operating on, and so I've highlighted some of the things that they are we'll be working on in the upcoming year. And I guess with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Kim to talk about his department.
Thank you, Phil. Good evening, council members. In the proposed budget, you can see the section about the law department that begins on page 30. I'm not going to, waste the council's time by reading what is on the printed page there, but I just wanted to highlight a number of things. One, as Mr. Moore said, our goal was a status quo budget where we are trying to essentially not increase our overall costs. I think we have accomplished that for the most part here. There's some slight increases in personnel costs, but those were offset by other reductions in expenditures, and also there's some increase in projections in operating expenses as well. I guess in terms of that, if you want to talk about some of the things that the law department has accomplished in the last year, one, we've continued to maintain the level of service that I think the city deserves in terms of its legal services. We've resolved a number of cases, some by motion and some by settlement. We have also continued to provide legal counsel to the city and its officials and agencies. In particular, one of the initiatives that we've been working on and that staff from my office has been working on has been supporting the city's anti-blight initiatives, particularly through the neighborhood safety officers, the city services department, our division that's usually referred to as the blight department, and issuing tickets, conducting administrative hearings, and ultimately either having the residents who are ticketed conduct the cleanups themselves or doing the cleanups for them and then charging them for those cleanups. That activity has been increasing since we've been revamping that. We started revamping that last fiscal year in 2023. And in 2023, just kind of as a benchmark, not that fine collection is kind of the purpose or is that we're trying to do this as revenue generating activity, but it serves as a useful benchmark for activity. In fiscal year 2023, the total fines collected was in the area of approximately $8,000. In fiscal year 24, and this is obviously only partial because we are just starting May, we are already in excess of $31,000 in fine collection, which represents a roughly fourfold increase in the amount of tickets that are written, hearings that are held, and cleanups that occur. I think looking at the overall numbers from that we've been collecting, the most promising number out of the numbers that we've been collecting is actually 1,580, and that is the number of blight cases that were resolved actually without needing to issue a ticket in the first place. So that represents roughly 1,500 warnings that were issued by our neighborhood safety officers that the residents corrected whatever violations that were identified before we had to even start the administrative process. We're not where we want to be yet in terms of our blight elimination efforts, but to me this is a meaningful step forward, and the law department is very proud to have been part of a multi-departmental working group that's pushing this forward in addition to our city services and our police department. I guess beyond that, I would be interested in fielding any questions that you would have about the law department and our proposed budget.
Go ahead, Ms. Burns. I gave you the first opportunity since you were the first one here.
How much have we spent in outside firms this year?
In this fiscal year, let me look that up here real quick.
Mr. Moore,
Is
you
that
may
under-
be able to find it more quickly.
Professional services, we've got the calculation as of 6:30. It's projected, it's not full amount. We do have some activity. What line item is that
I
under?
believe in total, we're talking approximately $750,000.
I'm sorry, you said
Between
600 and 750, so
$750,000, yes.
about 750,000 we spent in outside firms.
If I'm reading this correctly, Phil, is that?
Yes.
Okay, and is it listed on, this is microscopic, is it listed on here someplace?
Legal services are generally paid out of a number of funds, I can't tell
Okay.
exactly what you're looking at, but
Okay, and I haven't had a chance to read it, my laptop hasn't been working. How much is in suits and settlements?
total in suits and settlements, for fiscal year 2023-24, or for the budget that is being proposed to you right now?
What is it currently?
The current amount that's budgeted is 2.9, just under 3 million.
How much is left in there?
Currently about 2 million.
About 2 million is left
The
in there?
unencumbered balance, yes.
Okay, and then there was a water settlement fund Is there a water defense that we're supposed to use, like the water crisis?
There is a line item for legal services related to the water crisis, yes.
Okay, how much is in that account?
Budgeted for last fiscal year was 1.2 million.
Have we used money and transferred out of that account with your budget running over?
Well, our budget isn't running over, one council member. There is approximately, there has been money spent out of that account.
How much has been spent out of that account?
Roughly 450,000.
450,000 was spent on that account?
Yes.
We haven't been to court for water, have we?
We have a number of things that are going on related to that, and
Would that be the Judge Lawson, the contempt? How did we spend 450,000?
Yeah, Kim?
Was that on attorney fees, or how, what is it itemized as? What, or
That-
can you
that
send
I
me
can't
that,
tell you right
Mr.
off the
Mr.
top of my
Moore?
head.
Can you tell me what was it money transfer one account to another account, or was it all legal fees?
these were all for legal services that were provided, whether, actually, though, sorry, let me correct myself. The legal services for the water crisis has only spent approximately 270,000. So I misread the number on my chart, but I can't give you an itemized breakdown. of
Yeah,
that.
on how that money is spent. How long will we have to have that? Well, we're not done with water yet, so,
Yes, that's, it's hard to predict, and that's,
Yeah.
there's a certain amount of estimates based on previous numbers. That number is itself greatly reduced from the height, I guess, of the water crisis when we were still actively litigating hundreds of cases. As I said,
So-
currently for this fiscal year, the budget for that is, was budgeted for 1.2 in this fiscal year. In the proposed budget, we are reducing that number further to 700,000.
Excuse me, Ms. Burns, is that from general fund or is that from another fund?
That's general fund.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
so it's being reduced then. If you can, I would like to see what it was spent on, if I could get that, itemized, what is it that we were spending? You're saying legal services, but it should show each deduction from that account. If I could get that, please. And then my other question, blight court. I haven't, how does blight court operate? It's in the basement, is it operating fully, or?
Yes, the blight court, what is commonly referred to as the blight court is actually an administrative hearing office.
Right.
The city is empowered to conduct under the Home Rule City Act. Their hearing office is located in the hearing room is located in the basement of City Hall. The city provides essentially administrative staff support for that through the City Services Department. And the hearing officers themselves are a contract with several local attorneys that's administered by the law department. In that that's
Are
being
they
currently-
working fully?
No, I don't remember the exact details of their
Are they
contract.
open,
but
like-
The general idea was it's funded sufficiently to basically have them hearing cases or dealing with matters 1 day a week.
1 day a week?
Yes.
As
So-
much blight as we have in Flint, and it's 1 day, okay.
Well, again, this is,
And their budget for how much?
it's,
What's it, what, did you say?
The-
What,
well, the contracts have a maximum amount on them, which I believe is $50,000 annually. But the actual amount spent depends on the amount of work that they do and the number of cases they hear, the number of motions that they review and rule on. So I believe they're not going to be expected to draw from that entire amount for this fiscal year.
and so you said you brought in, what was it, 37,000? And blight,
A little bit over
From
31,000.
31,000.
in fine revenue from the,
from issuing blight tickets?
Yes.
Okay, I'll yield to my other colleagues.
Okay. Mr. Murphy?
So you are also
under the opium funds. Is that correct? Is that up under the law department?
The opioid funds are not, as that the city has received, are not administered by the law department. Our role was, essentially to work with our outside counsel to basically get those settlements for the city. So in terms of in terms of like the day-to-day, the law department doesn't administer those or do anything with those funds, really.
Yes, how is your staffing levels?
Currently, we're, there's a number of transitions going on. We're currently 2 attorneys below our authorized strength of 7. We have 1 more attorney who will be moving actually over to the county in the near future. We do have an offer extended and we'll expect a new attorney to be beginning, but that will still leave us with 2 vacancies, attorney vacancies. The legal fellow position that I believe I discussed last year, we unfortunately did not manage to fill that position for this year, but we do have a legal fellow who will be starting in August. And I'll be happy to introduce to you when he starts. He's a former Genesee County resident who is going to be graduating from law school in about 2 weeks, and we are looking forward to having him join the team.
Do you have a deputy attorney?
I do. Yes, we appointed
Mr. Cups.
Mr. Cups back there.
Oh, okay.
Was appointed earlier this year.
Okay, all right. So you comfortable with your staffing to the point that it's not a strain on you to deal with so many multiple litigations going on through this?
I will say, as Mr. Moore stated kind of in his introduction, maintaining staffing levels is a challenge. I think if we were at our fully authorized staffing based on the previous year's budget, I would be much more comfortable. We've been below that authorized strength for several months now, and that's requiring us to continually reprioritize different matters on the fly to make sure that the critical services are being covered for all the things that the law department does, whether that be...
My last question, do you feel that we are, the salaries and what we are paying our attorneys need to be equitable to those in Genesee County or mid-Michigan? And are we losing attorneys because we don't pay enough?
That's always a difficult question. I think if you ask any of my staff if they would like a raise, they would say yes. And I would not turn one down myself. But I think the comparison we have to do is not necessarily against attorney salaries generally, but comparing ourselves to attorney salaries from in government attorneys. And in that case, while we're not at the top of the scale, I think in the last summer, this council approved a revision to the exempt compensation schedule that went a large way to bringing us closer to probably where we need to be, while also recognizing that Flint is a relatively economically distressed municipality, and we are not going to have the budget of some more affluent communities to do stuff. But I think compared to where we were last year, our salary structure is far more competitive, even if there is still work to be done.
All right, thank you. I'm done.
Dr. Lewis?
I might have missed it. So how many more people were you looking to hire?
Currently we have, I guess I'll call it 2.5 vacancies in the office, and we're about to have 1 more vacancy open up, which will be filled right now. It looks like it will be filled shortly thereafter, so we'll still be down 2 attorneys. And we do have our legal fellow that will be starting in August. So for at least the next few months, we're looking at potentially being down 2 attorneys until August.
Okay. And then in terms of, I don't know if this would be the appropriate committee, in terms of Blight Court talking about the fees that are accrued, Does your office determine that, the amount of money, the fees? Thank you.
If you're talking about the fines that are
Yeah.
charged for violations, those fines are set as part of the master fee schedule that the council approves every year as part of the budget process.
Part of this process, right?
At the budget hearing, in June, traditionally, there's a number of resolutions that are presented to council for review and approval. One of those is the city's master fee schedule, which includes, it's usually about 15, 20 pages of different line items and different fees. Among that are the administrative fines. Currently, those are set at a minimum of $250 for a blight violation. By statute, the city can impose up to $10,000 for a blight violation, but that's essentially, they're listed, I believe, as $250 to $10,000 to give essentially the administrative hearing officers flexibility in essentially, applying an appropriate remedy to violations that are placed before them.
Very long answer. So, June. Okay, thank you. All right, that's it.
Okay. So, you're down 2.5 positions. That's half position, I mean, a half-time position that you're down, or?
About a half, because the legal fellow's salary is below that of a fully licensed attorney, that.
You're calling it a half?
Yeah, it's not like half, it's not a half-time position. It's 3 full-time positions that we're currently down, but 2 full-time attorneys and 1 full-time legal fellow.
So since you oversee the blight department, and blight is a big thing in my ward, and we've had some talks about this, how many cases still need to come, number one, who is following up and recommending cases for blight court? Who's tracking that?
Okay, by administratively overseeing the blight court, really what we are doing is reviewing the invoices that are sent by the blight hearing officers, and making sure that they, accurately reflect the work that's being done. Aside from that, the blight hearing officers, the administrative hearing officers themselves are required to and do act independently to essentially review the cases that come before them. They're, even though they're paid by the city, they're not there to represent the city. I just want to make that clear because so that there's no misunderstandings by the public there. The way that process works generally is it starts with the neighborhood safety officers that are under the supervision of the police department. They're kind of the front line on the ground troops there, where they will patrol their wards, the wards they're assigned to. They'll issue warnings to residents that have blight violations, and if those warnings don't result in correction of the violations, they'll then issue tickets. Once those tickets are the beginning of the kind of the formal process, and once those are issued, those tickets are then transmitted to the City Services Division, the blight department, under Arnold Brown. There's a certain amount of time that the respondents who get tickets issued to them, we refer to them as respondents, that they have in order to basically simply pay to decide whether they're going to pay or contest the tickets. If they do not essentially pay the tickets within that time frame, the city will generally either move for a default against those, where we're going to try to get present the case to the hearing officer, and ask them to issue a default judgment against the respondent, or if the respondent contacts the blight department and wants to contest the citation, that can then start the formal hearing process, which goes through a number of stages, but essentially gives them a chance to present their case for why they may not be in violation of whatever blight ordinance is being cited. Our goal, I guess, is to, from the time that a ticket gets issued till the time that we can get a formal hearing, to have that be no more than 3 months. That's kind of in comparison to previously when it would take 6 to 9 months to get a case through that process. And I think we're doing a reasonably good job of trying to keep that timeline, basically, where if there can be kind of a plea agreement between the respondent and our blight department, that will shorten that process. And we're ultimately not trying to I guess, cite everybody who has a violation. We're trying to encourage people to, our residents to come into compliance voluntarily. We all know that the city has a very massive problem with, urban blight, and we need the cooperation of our residents to really attack that.
Now, how many days a week do they have blight court? 1 day a week?
It varies. Currently, it's usually, there's 1 day a week that they're actually holding hearings. We'll send out requests, essentially requests for defaults or hearings weekly in batches. And not everything will get to the hearing stage. A lot of times it will get resolved in an earlier stage, or if the respondents don't actually respond, we will simply seek a default judgment in order to to get an order from the hearing officer that will allow our blight department to go and clean up the violation themselves.
So I remember there was a case on I believe it was Arlington, in the 4th Ward, where Kate had been working for 2 years to try to clean that up, and it took that long to get it through court. We don't have that process anymore, because I believe that, it just took a...
I can't say that there isn't a case where a case might have slipped through, but like I said, our goal is to try to, as a general practice, to go from ticket to a final order from the hearing officer within 3 months.
Okay, so do we need to have more days available for blight court? Do we need to open and have more?
We have the flexibility to increase that within our current contracts. It's a scaling up process that we are continually working on to try to increase the activity there. There's a lot of potential bottlenecks that are in that whole process, not just within the kind of the legal administration of the blight hearing process, but going everything from, writing the tickets and things like that. And as, that's with, as I mentioned earlier, over 1,500, warnings were resolved prior to issuing a ticket. So that's, if you spread that out over 52 weeks, that's an additional, 30 or so cases potentially a week that could have had tickets written, but that we managed to resolve even before tickets were written.
Mr. Murphy, what was that?
Yeah, I need that.
Go ahead.
So, on to what she's saying, in my ward, and I can think of the 1000 block of Baltimore Street, the resident been complaining about this personal house that someone owned, and the house the front porch and everything has caved in. So you call the blight officer, he come out, nothing happened. Do we have enough teeth in our policies to be able to enforce? They don't want to sell the house. They paid up on their taxes, but they won't do nothing with the house, and it's about to cave in. Thank you.
I think in terms of whether we have enough teeth in our ordinance, I think our ordinances provide us with the, basically the ability to apply the maximum penalties that are allowed by state law, which is that $250 to $10,000 fine that I mentioned earlier. Along with that, our hearing officers have the authority to issue cleanup orders that require the respondents to clean up the violation or authorize the city to go in and do it for them. In terms of the specific case that you mentioned, I'm not familiar with that case, so it's difficult to kind of give you concrete answers there. But to me, it sounds like there's a potential overlap there, or even that may be more of a building safety case instead of a blight case. We use we sometimes are a little imprecise, and we use those terms somewhat interchangeably, but building code violations would go through a different process, and if there's, if a porch is collapsing to the point where the structure itself is unsafe, that would generally be outside the scope of the blight court and the hearing office, and would go through a different process that we're not as involved in.
Okay, so I'm looking at the report that Mr. Moore provided us, and with a calculation as of 6:30, and it looks like you're gonna be about $500,000 under budget from last year. So, I mean, I like that idea, but not necessarily at the, jeopardizing your ability to do your work without having to hire outside attorneys, which I believe would cost us more money.
Yes, it would, and that's essentially, that's one of the steps that we're actually taking right now, is to ensure that matters are being covered, is we're having to retain outside counsel to either handle directly or assist with handling a number of pending cases that we have, that it's easier to retain outside counsel for certain types of matters than it is for others. So if I have to prioritize, we'll have to do that. And we've already started the process for a number of our litigation matters.
Okay, so, based on this, if you were able to, and I know this is speculation and it's hard to determine where that would, if you were to have a full staff, you said we spent around 600,000 on outside attorneys this year?
Roughly, I believe, yes.
How much, if you were to be able to fully staff up, do you think that would save? Is it almost impossible to calculate because of the different rates that attorneys charge in the cases? And
I will say that basically up till relatively recently, most of our retention of outside counsel has been because of either potential conflict issues, or because those areas were in extremely specialized areas of law. We've kind of begun retaining outside counsel to handle cases that we would normally be able to handle in-house, but that essentially we have a capacity issue right now that I'm having to project down the road here, at least several months down the road, that if we don't do this now, that we would potentially have major capacity issues in terms of doing that. So those costs aren't necessarily reflected in the cost to date, because that's only really been a concern in the last, become a concern in the last few months. Up till about the late winter, most of our outside, almost all of our outside counsel would have been retained, because either there was a potential conflict issue that we had to do so, or because the matter itself required extremely specialized counsel.
okay, but now they're doing more routine.
Yeah, I mean, I've just today had a number of conversations with potential outside counsel on things to reassign cases that we've been handling in-house, that I would have, if all things were equal, would have loved to have kept in-house but that realistically we had to make provisions for them to be handled and covered.
I have one other thing, and it's kind of not as part of your budget. I think it's more of the suits and settlements fund, and that is the basement, sewage in the basements that happened last fall. I believe it was last fall.
That process has taken much longer than I think anybody would like. The vast majority of the claims we received were actually filed by a single firm who is representing approximately, I can't remember off the top of my head, and but I would say at least the majority of them were filed by this one firm. And we've been in discussions with that firm basically over the last year, and we are hopeful that we'll get the first batch of those resolved soon, and that we can start. Those would all fall under the authority that was granted by the council, I believe last summer, that provided us with enhanced, basically, ability to settle those cases. But we're trying to do those in bulk, and that's been a process of essentially verifying the damage claims and making sure, trying to do so in the best interest of the city.
Yeah, I definitely don't want our residents to suffer, and I know that they're out of pocket. And I know that the result of the outside attorney slowed things down quite a bit. So I have no other questions. Any follow-ups?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So, Attorney, how many attorneys did you say that you have in your law office? now? And now, speaking of your fellowship, so I think the fellowship is only 4 years, is that correct?
That's
They can
correct.
only be 4 year, okay.
Yes. We currently have 5 attorneys, including myself. As I stated, one of those attorneys will be leaving us in the next week and a half. in
What
about a week
attorney
and a
is
half. Mr. Bush.
Oh, Ben Bush, okay. And so you have 5 attorneys. Do any of the attorneys have any specialized area? You don't have an attorney that is in municipal law is a specialized area, or one that is in like constitutional law?
We all practice municipal law by definition, council member.
So why are you sending all of these out? Because I'm looking at how many cases you send out. You send a lot out. And we
As
don't.
I said,
we
there's
don't- Let me finish, please. We don't fight the cases. I think most of the cases generally are settled. And so my point would be, if we have, if you could say, okay, this is where we're having majority, I understand you say municipal law, but when you hire an attorney, do you hire one looking for, I need someone with, specifically municipal law? Because I think when we look at everything that you're farming out, we are paying, the city is paying out, because the attorneys here they're really getting their experience here, not coming with experience. And that, we look at the cost, and you spent, what is it, $750,000 this year in outside firms? So if we had an attorney who specialized in a specialized area, we probably, the city would be saving by not having to farm out to other firms. And we're farming out a lot. I don't even think, has the city taken?
With respect, council member, when one council member files suit against other council members, it significantly increases the likelihood that there is a conflict that would require us to seek outside
I didn't get an
counsel.
attorney. I had to take care of my own attorney fees for this, that we were in court today. And
In
so,
addition to that, there,
not even in addition, I'm speaking to the cases that, let's say those 5, I don't know, I think it was 17 or 18 people that filed with the lawsuit. I don't even think we took any of those to court, did we? All of those were settled.
I believe you're talking about a case that has been pending, that was pending
From
from
2019, October
2019.
2019.
That case was litigated over the course of approximately 4 years. It resulted in the dismissal of the outright dismissal of approximately a third of those cases, and the remaining plaintiffs all settled over the course of about 2 years. Those settlements themselves were the result of vigorous litigation activity by both in-house attorneys and outside counsel. In that case, we had no choice but to retain outside counsel because of the potential conflicts that were involved, given that 2 of the named defendants were officials of a former administration. But the city itself obviously is as it is right now, and the potential conflicts were assessed to be too high in that case to risk keeping that case entirely in-house, and so we used outside counsel to represent those former officials. Our outside counsel, I think, did an excellent job there, along with I was assigned to that initially and reassigned that to other attorneys in the office after that. It was vigorously litigated by both in-house and outside counsel, and I think the results that were achieved, while they weren't perfect, were in the best interest of the city.
Yeah, and so this is what I'm saying, I'm gonna repeat it again. If we hire an attorney or even 2, and we're looking at, if you take over the number of years and say, okay, this is what our average is that we're spending. Hire an attorney who's specialized. We have talked about numerous times, all cases in Flint settle. They settle. You don't fight a case, they settle.
That's also untrue, and
Okay, what case have you went and fought besides, what case?
respectfully, council member, you are talking to the attorney who, in his term with the city of Flint, has taken more cases to trial than any other attorney recently.
Since we have been here, Attorney, and I guess it's going down the rabbit hole, we have talked and discussed about even the 17, I think it started off as 22, 5 dropped off, that we end up settling. And a lot of the cases, they just aren't false. So what I'm saying is, if you're down to 5, I think you want 6 in your department? Is it 6 your goal to have on your team? Or?
6 attorneys plus myself, yes.
Okay, so that would be a total of 7 for the entire legal department, you have 5 now, so you need 2.
We have 5, including myself, yes.
Okay. And so if we're looking to find someone who's more specialized, is what I'm saying, maybe we won't have to spend an outside, and that number was 750,000 will go up, is that correct?
I would expect that number to go up before the end of the fiscal year, yes.
And do you have like an approximate that it'll go up?
Nothing that I would be nothing that is,
Okay.
that would be
Okay,
given
fair.
any, it would be
Yeah.
throwing a dart at the
Yeah,
dartboard.
and understand. So, and I want to skip over to Blight. Maybe I'm missing something, and I know, and I guess there has to be with the NSO. And when we look at where's the system failing at, I have seen NSOs ride by, you can write 10, you had 1,500 tickets, was it 1,500 tickets that were written? For Blight?
Total number of tickets that were written was not, it was 1,500 warnings that were resolved before tickets needed to be written. Total tickets written in this fiscal year so far has been approximately 730.
It could be 20,000. Because and that is the problem. Literally, I was talking to a lady, and there was a basketball hoop in the middle of the street. It just in this one block that had maybe 25 houses, they could have wrote 15, 20 tickets. So when the NSO rolled down the street and rolled back down the street, did not stop to ticket anything. Parking on the grass, somebody had a home motor or repair system, basketball hoop on the side. And then I'm talking to a lady, and she's complaining to me about the NSO. So where I see a big problem is, and I guess it would go to Chief Green and then Reed, why aren't the NSOs stopping and saying, hey, this is a violation? They are our first point of contact, period. That's their job, to ride up and down in those nice trucks with the city gas and cite violations, talk to people, even create a report. Hey, I need you to take care of this garbage right here, or else we may have to write you a violation. And so while our city looks bad, our NSOs need to be doing their jobs. And you said 700 tickets, but that was it?
730 tickets that were
In the entire city.
issued from in this fiscal year so far, and that is on top of.
And just for the record, can you say the start date for the fiscal year so that people who are watching?
July 1st.
July 1st of 2023.
Yes, I would like to point out that I think that it's an unfair characterization of our NSOs to say that
No,
they're
it's fair to
doing
me because
nothing.
I've seen them and I know what the neighborhoods look like. And I've seen them walk up. And my NSO I have a good rapport with, but these are in other neighborhoods. But even then, my NSO, I think that they, you shouldn't have to call. If you're driving all day, you know the problems. You see them. And maybe, Attorney Kim, you need to drive the neighborhoods with me because I'd love to show you. Then you would understand.
Again, like I said, I think there is a number of potential bottlenecks that would need to be addressed to
What's the
increase
bottleneck
activity.
issue? Because we need to fix it.
I don't think that there is a single bottleneck that we can identify to go, we just need to fix this one thing and that will increase,
Well, let's start with a
anti-blight
list of
activity.
top 6.
I think that you will want to discuss that issue with Mr. Brown, with his when he comes to present on city services. You'll probably want to discuss that issue with Chief Green.
Mr. Brown is doing a great job, and it's not with him. And I'm saying, when his department gets it, and let's even say the NSOs ride around. They ride around, they have one job: to look and see and ticket. Or talk to the people and say, I need you to take care of this. Create a rapport with the community. I don't understand. Since I've been here, I'm saying for the past, we could say 6, 7 years, there's an issue with the NSO.
Yeah. Respectfully,
NSO.
I think the questions about the NSOs would be better directed at
Yeah,
the.
I said there's a problem with the NSO.
Yes, police department.
I said with Officer Reed, she is the police department, that's who's over it.
But I would like to also point out, that they have a number of responsibilities. Blight is only one aspect of the duties that are assigned to them. So I guess, the questions about how they're assigned and how they're tasked would be better directed towards Chief Green.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, and I get that part, but when you're saying it all has to work together, 730 tickets for the entire city is sad.
I don't think that it's sad. I think it is, I would agree that it is below the level that we would like to see to address the blight problems that the city has
Then
before.
it's sad.
But it represents a meaningful improvement in the activity that's
It's
been done
not
before.
meaningful, do you, Ms. Attorney Kim? One day, I would like to take you to see. And when you see, you will be surprised, because I don't think you've driven around Flint.
Well, that would be.
If I rode around with the blight I could go out and even in my area, and write 100 tickets today. You give me a whole week, I could probably write 250. You give me 2 months, I could beat their goal of 730. You have citations every single place. I mean, and some of it's building and permit. I got somebody with a rooster in their yard now. So I know our time is limited.
Yep.
We've got 2 minutes, so I'll let Judy do the closing.
Yeah. Dr. Lewis, did you have any follow-up?
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, we have just a couple of minutes.
Cool, that's all I need. I don't need much. Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of the more proactive enforcement, and I'm not sure if this is an option, but like, could it be performance-based bonuses for NSOs?
That's in the contract. They're union, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, remember, one of the collective bargaining groups, and so that would be a question for, really probably for Eddie Smith and Human Resources.
Okay. Yeah, because we have a lot of ordinances on the books that are not being enforced, and I'm in full agreement that that we're not fully utilizing. I'm enforcing the ordinances. I think a lot of people don't even know that we have some of them. I believe Kate Field, she was talking about having the ordinances published online. Did we ever do that?
At the risk of treading on Clerk Donahue's terrain here, we have been working together to update the city's online code. That is in process, and she'll be able to give you more details about that when she talks to you. But that's a process of working with our outside vendor to get that updated. We're having to work through essentially I wanted to say at least a 10-year backlog of ordinances that have been passed over since before the emergency managers, I think, or at the time that we were under emergency management. We have to get all those ordinances from the last 10 years, get them organized, and that's a fairly significant job for our outside vendor to do.
All right, and my last question is about the flood. So have you all settled all of the cases about the flooding that happened on Winona? Because I know I had some residents reach out to me.
No, they haven't. They have not all been settled yet. We're getting the first batch that we hope to be able to resolve within the next, I'll say hopefully within the next month or so. We've been trying to work with people to collect, the ones who aren't represented, to collect the documents needed to support those claims. And we'll be processing those as quickly as we can.
Okay, but in terms of the one that you do have, you have worked on them.
Yes, candidly, the firm that's representing the vast majority has actually been very helpful in collecting the kind of supporting documents and claims documents from their clients, and have actually produced far more in terms of that than the unrepresented individuals have, which is one of the reasons why we're dealing with those first, because we need to have those supporting documents to justify the claims that are being requested.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Murphy, did you have any follow-up? No. Okay, thank you very much. You can go home.
Thank you, council members, and good evening.
Good evening. The next one will be the Office of the Ombudsman. Phil, will you be able to, I think somebody already got the copy. You provided copies of your presentation to the council, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I copied up, I have, the draft, and I
Yeah.
printed that off for myself. Good evening, and welcome to our torture chamber.
Good evening.
We've got your, would you like to go ahead and show us your budget and what your ideas are, and go ahead from there? Or would you like Mr. more to do? You guys decide how you
Her
want it.
budget is very much a status quo budget. There's very little new or different from that. That doesn't mean that she's not, like I said before, she's not doing things new and different. She's working with the budget she has. She's trying to improve her, her budget. The things that she's identified is that she wants to increase the community knowledge about the role of the Ombudsman office and what they can and can't do. One of her concerns is staff support. That's a recurring theme we have. Right now, she's limited the staff that she has. And then her third one, she wants to provide continued excellent service for the community from the Ombudsman's office.
Okay.
And there's very little change in her budget.
Okay. All right, would someone like to go first? Shasta, would you like to say anything before we get started? Like how many positions are in your budget? And how many do you have in your office right now?
You just speak it.
This is my first time up here. I have to make
Oh,
sure.
yeah, speak directly in
Okay,
that mic. It's-
there are, I do have to push the button.
Yeah, you're on.
Okay.
See the green
I
light?
do have to, there's 3 positions, there's 4. There's the ombudsperson, of course, an analyst for the ombudsperson, and a administrative assistant. But there's also an analyst for the Human Relations Commission. So right now, all of those that I've called, they're still vacant.
So you're the only one right now?
I'm the only one right now. We're in search of an analyst at this time. As a matter of fact, I received several applications today. But yes, we are looking for the staff support because that is very much needed, and that is the increase that you see in the salaries. It's because we tried to make it a little more competitive.
Have you, I did see the analyst position posted.
Yes.
Are the other positions posted?
No, they haven't posted yet.
Okay, do you know why?
We're just taking it one step at a time.
Okay. Ms. Burns, would you like to start?
Yes, why aren't they posted?
Well, we're starting with the analyst.
Wasn't that posted before?
Yes, it was.
And who pulled it down?
Well, it was taken down because they didn't get too many prospective candidates for it. And at that time, the salary was at a lower rate.
What was the salary?
That was $17 an hour. Then after, because the job description required a bachelor's degree, we put it back out there, but we put, it went out there again for an increase of $20 an hour. And still very little people with the experience or with a degree that applied for the position. So we took the job description again and put associate degree, bachelor's degree preferred. And we have had some people to apply.
Okay, and so your salary, I know there was an issue with your salary. What is your salary a year now?
$86,000.
86, so you are now getting your salary.
Yes.
Do you have a P card?
No.
And so you were supposed to get, was it a P card?
Yes.
You have not been sworn in yet.
No.
And do you know why you haven't been sworn in?
I was told because of the opinion from legal that I had to get some backup or documentation from either the HR office, council, or the mayor's office.
The mayor's office?
Some type of documentation. I
From the
think
mayor's
but
office?
Davina could probably better explain it because I did speak with her, but she said she needed some documentation that states that my appointment has been accepted.
Okay, so you have the vice president, Mr. William Harris here. Your board did elect her to take the position, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And so what was your vote for that? Do you remember?
Yes, ma'am. So the board unanimously voted to pick Ms. Little as the permanent ombudsperson.
When was that?
I want to say that was done in...
January.
Was it done in January?
Yes.
And the conflict that we came up against was
that the board was unaware of an ordinance that was in place that restricted the experience. So the experience had to be 5 years in governmental affairs in regards to either on the local level or a state level or even a federal level. And so for that reason, that is what stalled everything, because the board did vote for it. And I'm not sure what the holdup is because we haven't received further communication as to the real reason as to why we were stalled out. As far as the reason why, I don't know if the city clerk hasn't told us in an email or a follow-up saying, I can't do this because of the legal opinion that has been rendered by the city attorney, and I've got to wait for that to clear up. And that's why the board went on ahead and we hired an independent counsel to help us with that.
Oh, you do have independent counsel?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so what is your independent counsel? Your budget is, you're $250,000 per the Flint City Charter for your budget, right?
Yes, ma'am, per the
That's the
charter.
minimum.
And
it's
that's
the
everything,
minimum.
including your salary, that's everything.
That's the minimum.
And
yes.
so you got, what, 3 more positions you would like to hire?
Yes.
And
one of-
that, I don't see that happening really in that budget. I mean, that's really not, that's a bare minimum.
Yes.
So you need 4 to run, and you want to run that entire department with $250,000. I don't see that.
Ms.
I
Burns,
think
they're
that if you look at the budget,
proposing
you'll
up
see that we're
above.
proposing 387,000.
Oh, they're proposed, okay, so
Yeah.
you're asking for an increase.
Last year, we gave them 370.
Davine, I think they can't see it on, is it on that?
The, those
side?
screens aren't showing
Those
it,
screens-
just 2 of the screens.
So you need to find out, one, you're operating, how long can you operate as interim? So you're interim now, is that, I don't know, what would be the, what do you call, person not sworn in? I don't know what your title would be.
Well, from my understanding from the board and the chair, that I am the appointed of us person. The reason that they've gotten an outside attorney so that we can move forward with getting me settled in the position.
Okay, and I'll leave that part alone. So your other 2 salaries, so you had an analyst, and and how many hours per week were you going to have the analyst? You said you bumped it up to 20. It was it full-time or was it part-time?
It's full-time. All positions are full-time.
Okay, so what was the salary then that you had?
The salary for the analyst would be $41,000.
Okay, for analysts for the 41, and then you had the other positions, but they're not, you haven't put those out yet, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you know around how much those salaries?
The human relations analyst would be around the same, but that money is funded through a MOD grant.
Okay,
For the Human Relations Commissions, but that has not been quite established as of yet. And the
okay,
administrative assistant would also be full-time.
okay. And so, your offices were remodeled, so you're in there now,
Yes.
okay. I'll yield to some of, to my colleagues.
Go ahead, Mr. Murphy.
Hello, how you doing?
Finding you.
Good. I really hate, and I know I shouldn't use the word hate, but I hate that you've been put in this position where you was appointed by the board, but because of the ordinance that talks about the qualifications of your job position was not made clear prior to them voting for, and what I'm afraid of is if something happened, the other candidates who apply for the position is going to raise issues if they have not already raised issues. So my understanding of the ombudsman position was that the job was posted, HR looked at the applications, they made recommendations to the board, and the board did not like or maybe they interviewed some of them, or they just didn't like any of the candidates that were recommended through HR, which did the vetting of the qualifications and making sure that the candidates meet the minimum qualifications. And I heard you got excellent credentials. It's unfortunate that I guess it was 5-year municipal experience that you needed.
And I want to say this,
Yeah.
with the government experience, I've been an educator, so I didn't, that's where I went forth with even applying for the job, because I've been in the education system.
I just hate that you've been put in this position to now the Ethics and Accountability Board decided, and I'm not sure when they voted on you, did they know at that time that the minimum qualifications was the 5-year municipal government? And if they did know that, they proceeded to move forward still with voting for your appointment, which even made the situation more complicated. Here's what I would have done.
So can I
Let me
just-
finish. Let me finish first. Here's what I would have done. I would have took my counsel or my legal lawyer that represent, or I would have asked an outside attorney once I found out that HR said you needed 5 years versus 3 years, even though you've been performing the job duty. I would have looked and got a second opinion from a legal opinion first prior to them making the situation more complicated. So now you putting the back up against our clerk to have her swear in you, when once that happened, if our clerk would do that, that's a recipe for pending lawsuit. And I'm not saying that could happen. I don't know for sure. But what I don't want, and when we go into closed sessions to have to negotiate this kind of stuff, we are the ones that have to make the decision, not based on the Ethics and Accountability Board decision to go on and appoint you, but to have our clerk touch swearing you in, knowing that HR said that based on the ordinance is not the 5-year minimum requirement. So that's where it's complicated, and I just do not like that you've been put in this position and you in there working hard, doing your job, you a one man. I mean, like, you is awesome when it comes down to the work that you are trying to do. I just think this is a complicated situation dealing with your appointment and no fault of your own.
So Councilman Murphy, if I may.
Yes.
So one, in the first round when we were picking an ombudsman, yes, she was disqualified. The candidates that we interviewed were not sufficient per the board. So the issue that we were having was, one, we didn't know that the ordinance existed. So what the board did is the board voted and we changed the job description.
So let me ask you this. Do you guys have the power to change the job description, or is just does the job description, because based on the charter and my understanding, since me being a council person, we have always, we might have done what you guys, here's what I suggest you guys should have done. You guys should have came to us and say, we need to look at this job description and we need to look at bringing it down because maybe we're not reaching.
Mr. Murphy?
But
The charter says the job description and qualifications for each principal officer, which the ombudsman is,
Okay.
shall be set forth by ordinance proposed by the mayor. That's in the charter.
And that's where, so HR did not know that the job description was an actual ordinance, and neither did the board.
So when y'all did find that out, what did y'all do?
So that's after the board made the appointment for Ms. Little.
That's why
I'll explain this. So in our second round, what happened is we did pick an the board selected somebody.
Yeah.
The person, an individual, declined. Because the individual declined, the board just then decided to hire Ms. Little as the appointment. It wasn't until after the board made its decision that we discovered that an ordinance from May 13th of 2019 had been issued by the former mayor. So we had no idea that this was an actual ordinance, and that's what was holding our feet to the fire, because my question then was to legal, is you all knew that we did change the job description in order to get more
you
candidates.
guys changed it, or
We-
like she said, did it come through the mayor?
We changed the
So
job.
how can you change something
That's-
she just read and
That's
said?
that's what I'm saying. We
Okay.
did not know that it was an ordinance.
So when
so-
have you guys ever been able to change an ordinance in a job description?
That's what I'm saying. We did not know that it was an ordinance. We didn't know the
But
job.
you just said at your opening statement that you guys changed something, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That's the job description.
So
The
who
board-
give you guys the power to change the job description?
The simple fact that the board governs and hires the ombudsperson, because we asked HR, and HR told us this: because the board is responsible for the hiring and
So
the
you-
selection for the ombudsperson.
Yeah.
HR said there's not a problem with you guys modifying
Did they
the
put it
job
in writing?
description. Yes.
Could you send us
they
that? See, here's what and this is a complicated situation you got put in. This right here, and because y'all didn't know William, and it was complicated and the miscommunication, we in a situation that we need to fix and figure out what it looks like moving forward. Rather it's keeping her in that position or doing something, but I don't, as a council person, I don't feel comfortable with our clerk swearing you in at this point in time until we clear this up legally to get opinion. But in the meantime, in between time, you are running the office and you don't have access to a P card. This is my first time hearing about it. So we need to figure out what that look like. What can we do to support you to make that office run and make your job easy while you in that position as the interim person, whether you get it permanently or interim? You have been put in a compromised situation that is beyond you, and I think we ought to be careful what we push for, and I don't feel comfortable with our clerk. And with that, I'm listening, I see the budget, whatever we could do to help you, that P-card situation, we'll look at that.
Well, we've already handled that responsibility in regards to the P card. The issue.
Oh, okay, because I heard my colleague talk about it, so.
The issue with the P card is that in the language, they want to hold the chairman of the board responsible for any misappropriation of funds if anything should happen.
Where'd that come from?
That's right. That's written in the contract that Mr. King has for the P card. They want the chairman to be fully responsible for any mismanagement of her budget. And that's when I had told, and me and Mr. King have been in talks to try to say, no, this shouldn't, that's why we haven't signed it, because that shouldn't be his responsibility as the chairman. If you want to have oversight, that should be the responsibility of the finance subcommittee on the board and not the chairman. And that's the reason why we haven't signed it, because I don't blame him. I mean, if I was Mr. King, not saying against Ms. Little, but it's making one individual responsible for mismanagement. I'm not saying Ms. Little is mismanaging at all. That's what's in the contract versus it saying a subcommittee will make sure that all receipts and everything to go over with Ms. Little, that everything is in order. It doesn't say that. And that's why we have not signed the agreement for the P card, is because of the stipulations that were placed on that contract by the administration and by legal's office.
All right, thank you. I yield to my colleagues.
Dr. Lewis?
All right, so from what I hear, I know that you all have legal at your meetings, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so if you had legal at your meeting, and I believe that was the deputy staff, Mr. Cups, is that how you say it, Cups?
Yes, ma'am, Joe Cups.
Okay, so if he attended your meeting, and I guess he heard what you all were trying to do, he didn't say anything?
No, ma'am, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't even think that, and I could be wrong, but I don't think Mr. Cups was aware of the ordinance, and even our previous city attorney didn't even know about this ordinance as well, because we did ask him in board meetings which have been recorded, and he said, yeah, I don't see a problem with, if you need to make any modifications, you would have to go through HR and you would have to work it out. But I don't even think he was aware of that ordinance from 2019.
Okay.
And I can attest to that because I got a congratulatory email from him on being appointed. So again, the ordinance didn't come forward until the next day that to after I was appointed.
Okay. All right, so next, according to the charter, section 3504, the powers of the Ethics and Accountability Board, section D says, prepare an annual report for submission to the mayor and city council. Consistent with state law, Ethics and Accountability Board may recommend improvements in the standards of conduct to ensure the ethical behavior of city elected officials, appointees, employees, or in the organization and procedures related to the administration and enforcement of those standards. So with that being read, so my question is, where's the report?
From the board, I'm sorry, Madam President, from the board or for the ombudsperson?
From the ombudsman person.
I wasn't aware that I was supposed to do it today or just at any time. I know there is a report to be done, but I was supposed to have it with me today.
We haven't received any since we've been on council.
Okay, that's not a problem. I'll make sure you get it. So do I come to the council meeting? Do I submit it? How do I submit it? I come to present it to the council?
You can email it.
You can email it to Davina.
Okay.
So is this the first time that you're hearing this?
Yes. I thought I had to present to the board, to the EAB board, but I didn't.
It's in the charter.
It's in the charter to present to the I just saw the word EAB. I didn't see ombudsperson.
And I'll admit that as well. That is, I'll admit that as well. When we were looking at it, including me and Mr. King, we were looking at it from the standpoint that Mrs. Little's report would come to the board, but then also when the board made its full report to council, it would also include the ombudsperson's report in the report as well. So I think we were looking at it as submitting both reports as a whole versus submitting both reports as individuals. So in regards to that, I do apologize for that in the misunderstanding, because that's how I even looked at it as well. And if I'm wrong, I apologize for that. I'm
It
sorry.
also says that you have to submit it to the mayor.
Okay.
All right, so that's just a little troubling that because this is the job description of the job that she's currently in. So are you familiar with all of your duties?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Well, you should read this. Okay, so just for public record, and I want to make sure that we're all clear. So the ombudsperson, we're charged to prepare an annual report for the submission of the mayor and the city council. Consistent with state law, the Ethics and Accountability Board may recommend improvements to the standards to conduct to ensure the ethical behavior of the city elected officers, appointees and employees, or in the organization and procedures related to the administration and enforcement of those standards. So we definitely want to make sure that we get that, because is this you've been here for like, what, 2 or 3 years in this position as interim?
I'm almost 2 years.
Okay, and so, I know I've been on council a little more than 2-3 years. Do my colleagues ever remember receiving this report?
No, I just said that we haven't received one.
I mean, like, no, ever, not just this
Ever.
year, ever.
Ever.
All right.
Not since we've been elected.
So you mean Ms. Dorsey didn't submit, Ms. Dorsey was the former ombudsman before Ms. Little was selected as the interim. So Ms. Dorsey never submitted a annual report to you either?
No, no one had ever have done so, and it's kind of, yeah, no one has done so.
Okay. Then I further understand why you haven't received a report, and because that hasn't been the status practice. So for that one, okay, I understand.
Okay, because, because I want to make sure that, before we give extra money for extra people and things, that at least charter is being fulfilled and we are being accountable, because a lot of things, we won't be able to answer. However, I'm going to just skip over to here. So now we're looking at section 3.5.12, the Human Relations Commission Office, and it says the Office of the Ombudsman shall organize the Human Relations Commission, charged with the responsibility of reducing unlawful discrimination and increasing mutual understanding among the residents of the community. So, with that question, I thought I heard you about to allude to that at another earlier. So, did you want to speak to that, Ms. Little?
In reference to the human relations, yes.
Yes.
I reached out to the council members and also the church clerk, the clerk of the wards that were vacant, and we still have vacant wards. Ward 1, 3, 5, 7.
Hold on. When I heard I didn't have nobody, I appointed Freelon Threlkel.
Okay, that's,
Is that one to council?
I didn't get the information.
Oh, yeah, we did. We approved it.
Freelon Threlkel.
Okay, I didn't get that information.
He been serving. He got sworn in.
I did not get that information.
That's, and see, you sit there and say that, and yet everybody gets a list of all the approved resolutions that the council passes shortly after our council meetings, and that would have been included in it.
Okay, generally, I would get a resolution or something from the clerk. She was sitting over the resolution and even a copy of the resume. I didn't get that information. And then with Mr. Chris Fry, the only reason I got that is because I actually looked at the council meeting. I haven't gotten any new appointment information. I've requested appointments, but I haven't received it.
Now, when did you request these appointments?
I've requested on several occasions, the last being, I think, last week or the week before, but I made the request several times.
And so right now, you said that you are short 3 members, 3 wards?
Yes.
Okay, so are you currently meeting?
No, because we only have 4 people at the moment.
Well,
So there's Ward 1 is empty, 3 is empty, 5.
but 3 isn't empty.
Three?
No, until
Okay.
you told me you got your
He
appointment. So I
been
would
he
get
been
that.
on there for about 3 months now.
I never got the
yeah.
information.
Well, hold on. Well, if he attended, so do you attend the Human Relations Commission meeting?
They're not even meeting at this point.
Okay, so from what I hear, We have, so I thought Freeline was going to the meeting. Okay, so if they're not meeting, how you going?
I have no idea. They're not meeting because I attend the meeting. It's not an active board yet.
I know that there was a question about having to turn back money into Mont unless we were able to have enough members to have a quorum, which
Right.
we do have.
Right.
So they should be at least called a meeting, and
Yeah.
then if you don't have a quorum, that's another
Yeah,
thing.
because you should have 5 members.
Okay.
And, no, like now you should have 6, because now you just found out about Mr. Threlkel.
That would be 5.
So that'd be 5?
Yes.
Oh, so my appointment is Holly Wilson.
Holly Wilson.
Right. And, yeah.
Fourth ward was
You have your Human Relations Commission.
Chris Fry.
Tanya.
Ms. Burns?
Tanya,
What?
your Human Relations Commission appointee. Do you remember?
No, I'm not, I'm going, I don't know, I don't know. Did you send me an email for one?
Yes.
Yeah, I did not assign one, no.
So, let me ask you this. So, based on, second ward, third ward, fourth ward, do you know any of the other wards that appointments?
No. Oh, you talking about, the actual ones that I have here?
Yeah, could you name them?
I'm sorry?
Do you have their names?
Yes, second ward is Holly Wilson.
Yeah,
Fourth ward is Chris Fry, and I
Yeah.
can get the correct name for your ward.
Freelon Threlkel.
I-
Freelon Threlkel.
Freelon Threadkill.
Okay, and Ward 6, Sonia Breed. Ward 8, Sandra Smith
Oh, so
Jones.
Sonia Breed is still on mine, so yes, I do
Sonia.
have one.
Okay.
I'm into the
Ward
finance
8,
part.
Sandra
Sonia Breed is
Smith.
mine.
Who?
Sandra Smith Jones, and Ward 9, Jaleel Carter.
Jaleel Carter?
Yes.
So you got enough.
Well, not that she got enough, sound like she had enough. So just going forward, when are you gonna start meeting? Because you got more than enough people.
We'll start getting that together. 'Cause
Okay.
I didn't know of those appointments.
Okay. So, so when we say we want to start, we are looking at when?
They usually meet the opposite, the last schedule was the opposite Tuesday of the Ethics and Accountability Board. So, we'll try to see if we could get something the fourth Tuesday in May. If not, we'll definitely, move forward. We're trying to get it for June.
Okay, so,
I have to get it
so when do you plan on, reaching out to the board members?
tomorrow.
Okay, and the reason why I'm asking is because this board is imperative to things that we're trying to do in the city. So, for example, the Fair Chance Housing Act. So this board, we're looking to enforce that, and if we don't have a board, then we can't move on with passing other ordinances within the city.
Understood.
All right, and so my other question is this, it's pretty much a concern, because I know I sent an email to the board, and it was about my complaint back in January. And so, so that complaint was about a EAB board member, all right? And then, and I want to know that, I didn't want to know that, why did the board violate the Open Meetings Act by going into closed session?
This is a budget hearing.
I don't think we violated the Open Meetings Act by going into a closed session about discussing a matter. I think it's when you discuss a matter and you come up with something and you don't reconvene in an open meeting and then you close, that you're in violation. So the board we discussed it in a closed session.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, we need to stay germane. This is not germane to the budget. This is a process with the meeting, with the complaint that the council member made.
Ms. Burns, we also did things that were not within the budget
But
as
the
to the city
people are not here
attorney.
to defend themselves.
Go ahead, Ms.
So
Go ahead.
that,
Thank
this
you.
is not, this is wrong.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
This is
So,
crazy.
so this is where, so this is what I'm looking at. Because whenever we have someone in this position, in this capacity, you know, we're trying to make sure things are done and above board. So, so with that being said, your job is when you receive a complaint, you send a follow-up email?
Not to follow up.
What's the process? So say if someone submit a complaint to
Okay,
you.
when I get a complaint, whether it's by appointment, I get the information, I do my research on it. try to resolve
Do you
it.
acknowledge the complaint?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And so after the complaint comes to a conclusion, then what?
There's generally a letter submitted I give confirmation from my office in reference to the conclusion, but not for the EAB board. Usually a letter would come from the EAB secretary of what the findings were. Because once I get a complaint in reference to an appointed official or anything like that, the EAB board handles that. I make help with recommendations, but the final outcome of it is generally the EAB secretary forward the information to me, and I make sure it gets to the proper person.
So I'm talking about the final response. So in terms of letting the person that filed a complaint know.
Yeah.
So whose job is that to get in contact with?
At this point, all responsibility is mine,
Okay.
because no one else is in the office, so yes, I get back with the results.
That's why staffing her office is so important, because she is doing it all. And that's where, even with us on the board, I understand follow-up and response would be a lot quicker if she did have administrative assistant, and she's able to say, okay, this is the end result. I need you to make sure that this person gets this email to let them know the case has been closed, and these are the things, or we need to do further litigation or further investigation. So really, with her not having a full staff, it's impacting her ability to really do her job.
Okay. So approximately how many complaints do you receive per year? Well, I would just say for this past fiscal year.
For this, this is April, going into May. I've had about 30 to 40 thus far,
Okay.
which may not seem like a lot for the office, but yes.
Okay. Yeah, well, it definitely I understand that one person can't do everything all the time for an extended period of time, but I also understand that simple protocol should also be handled. And I'm just using me for an example. When something was sent to the Ombudsman's office, I didn't receive any response back until I reached out for like 4 months later to say, hey, what's going on with this case? And then that's when I received an answer. And so if a decision was made back in January, in a closed meeting, but it was made back in January, proper response should have took place before then. And that's a little troubling.
And you're absolutely correct on that one, because of when we receive complaints from elected officials or appointment officials in that regard, the board handles that. So Ms. Little is correct. The letter would come from her office as far as the result, but that should have been communicated from the board secretary saying, Mrs. Little, this is the outcome of the decision that we've made. Please let the individual know about the complaint, that this is the board's thing. So normally that would have been drafted by the board secretary. It would have been forwarded to Ms. Little, and then Ms. Little would have made sure that you would have received that complaint. So there was a breakdown on the board's responsibility, not Ms. Little on that one.
Oh, okay, well, thank you for owning that. So going back to the board, clearly like the board is dropping the ball a lot of the time. And it looks like the board is putting Ms. Little in a bad situation, because it looks like the board don't understand their responsibility. So it's kind of hard for the board to govern and the ethics and accountability when they don't even know what they're supposed to do. They're dropping the ball on their work. So how can you serve the city when you don't know what you're supposed to do. But this doesn't fall on just on you, Vice President Harris. I want to be clear because you have like 9 other members, 10 other people on this board.
As of right now, we have,
I know 2 mayoral appointees, and
Supposed to
then
be 11, I
it's
believe.
supposed to be a board full of 11, but as of right now, I want to say we have 8. Or,
You don't have fourth ward.
no,
There's
we don't
appoint-
have fourth
no.
ward. We don't
She's
have
got
an
a
appointed
difficult
from
time
fourth
finding
ward.
someone.
So, and we don't have ninth ward.
Okay,
Because
because
Pa-
Paige just.
because
Rousseau
Paige-
just-
yeah, Paige re-
yeah, he
Paige
just
resigned.
Resigned.
And so that would, let me see, 9, so we have 9 members.
got it. So so this goes back to what Councilman Murphy was saying, and then I'll definitely relinquish the floor. Yeah, she's definitely in a sticky situation because it's kind of hard to navigate this process when the process is a little unclear and unstable. So I'll just go ahead and leave that there. So that concludes my questions. Thank you.
I'll take some time. I'm gonna go back to, I'm all about the money. Most of the time, not all the time, but, what was your position before you took the interim position?
I was the administrative assistant.
You're the administrative assistant.
ma'am.
So you have a secretary vacant, administrative assistant vacant, as well as an analyst,
No,
correct?
just the administrative, the administrative assistant, the analyst for the Ombudsperson office, and the second analyst for the Human Relations Commission.
Okay, so you don't have a secretary, it's the administrative
it's this-
assistant?
yes.
So if you were to hire an administrative assistant position and it was determined that you couldn't be the ombudsman, which, because you have, you don't meet the qualifications per the job description, then if you filled that administrative assistant position, you would not have a position to bump back into.
That's why we're posted for just the analyst at the moment.
Okay, and that makes a lot of sense. I was just trying to figure out a way that you could get help, administrative assistant, a secretary of some kind that you could get in. Maybe there is I would discuss with HR about getting some temporary help in.
We've done that on
We-
several occasions.
Yes, ma'am, we have. The board went to HR. We asked for a temp service. HR put it out. Nobody wanted to work for the ombudsman's office because from what I was told is that I don't think everybody understands how the ombudsman's office works in correlation with the Ethics and Accountability Board and the ombudsman's office. A lot of people believe that it's still the old way, whereas it's the ombudsman versus city council. And so a lot of the temps that we were looking at were saying, no, we don't want to work in Flint. No, we don't want to come to the city of Flint and work in the ombuds office. I mean, he literally, Director Smith put it out there, and he put it out there for about 30, 60 days. And every time his response was, they keep saying, no, they do not want to work with the city of Flint. So that's why we couldn't find anybody in the temp positions.
Okay. All right, so that makes sense. Now, the civil service is on this, they don't report, they don't do the civil service, do they?
Civil service does not report to them. It's currently a kind of a dormant
And it needs to be filled.
entity. I included their budget because there's no one to represent them. The
Okay.
charter does require that we have a budget for them, but they haven't done anything for several years, I understand.
Yeah, and that's something, but that's not for this hearing. So I'm looking at the budget for the ombudsman. Now, the attorney that you've got an outside attorney, are they paying for that out of legal, or are they gonna be transferring that cost to you? And I didn't think to ask Mr. Kim that when he was here, or don't you know?
Oh, yes, ma'am, I do know. So that's being held by legal itself. Legal signed a contract with our outside attorneys, so they're being paid through legal.
It's not going to be charged back to your department, to the ombudsman?
No, ma'am, I don't think
Okay.
so.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
So right now, it looks like we are, let me see, your amended budget is 370 from last year, and you're gonna be, and you'll have spent 216 anticipated, so that's gonna give you $160,000 unspent, which would be those two positions.
Yes.
Okay. Outside of, now next year, we've got a budget of 20,000 for professional services. What would you be using those for?
For constant training and getting updated information.
Okay,
And that's for the, entire staff.
Hey, real quick.
Yeah.
So, but down here it says education, training.
I'm
and
sorry, no,
competence.
professional service, I'm sorry. That was for, we were trying to get a copier for the ombudsperson's office. I apologize.
you don't have a copier?
I have a printer, no copier. So when I get bulk information and stuff, I have to go and get it done myself with my own funds, because I don't have a P card. And, I can only print 8.5 by 11.
And the problem with that, just to let you all know, the problem with that is that with using copiers and using printers versus a copier, it is easy for somebody to hack into a printer and is actually to go back and look at personal and private information because she doesn't have that equipment in her office that would allow that to be private. So basically like HIPAA, she would make sure that all that stays there, but because she did ask and they haven't worked with her in that regards, she has to go somewhere else. So you've got, the potential of a leak and a breach can be there if somebody wanted to do it.
So I would suggest that you provide us with a list of equipment that you need, and we can possibly bring that forward, or give it to the EA. Have you talked to IT?
I
have.
spoke with finance and, I've sent some quotes also, and each time I mention it, I'll get a call or an email from IT saying, what do I want the machine to do, and I have the emails to back it up. And I tell them what I needed to do, okay, we're right on it, goes dead.
Phil, what do you know about this?
I don't know much, but we can help.
Okay, so go through Phil, come up with that. If we have to do something about equipment, then we can do something, maybe in this, or
And-
do a,
In the interim, she can come up to finance and we'll let her use our copy machine.
I mean, there are secure, like ours is, some of our, and the law department has secure stuff, so,
And Vicki did request that, but that's me going from the basement, printing information and coming.
Come talk to me. We'll
yeah,
take care
they'll
of it.
go
All
through,
right.
because the IT knows the security. And
Yes.
it's important that we want you to be able to, we want the ombudsman's office to be able to do their job.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you don't have the equipment to do it in a satisfactory manner, my brain is not thinking of words today. Okay, in a good manner and a safe manner that you need for your information, then we need to be able to make sure that that office is able to operate on that. I have no problem with that. What was that? No, I don't see a 20,000 here.
Oh, it said professional services.
That's professional services for 20,000.
Did you say for the copier? Did you say?
I didn't say anything about it.
No, she said.
Oh, how much was the copier?
The quote I got, it was for leasing the copier. I had, I don't have it.
Don't we
directly.
have an agreement with a company for leasing?
We do. We use the state contract and.
So that would have to fall under IT
Yeah.
Yeah.
with the leasing of the equipment, and then it's charged back to your department.
Yes.
Right, is that
Yeah.
correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. All right, so that's something that we need to think about for her, because I don't care who is in the office, I don't care how many staff, you need to be able to do that kind of information.
No reason to have a staff if you don't give them the equipment to do their job, so.
That's true, that's true, there you go.
Come talk to us, and we'll take care of it.
Okay.
Yep, okay, so get with Mr. Moore on that. Any follow-ups? We have 7 minutes left?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So, here's what I find disturbing to me. Now I want y'all to take this back and think about when we sitting here and we looking in the audience and we see ethics and accountability board members out there hollering out, being disruptive, and on YouTube making accusations that's not, that they coming up with their own interpretations of what they believe is going on. It's very disturbing to see that they on an ethics and accountability board and they out there acting like they are acting and they supposed to be setting an example, and here they is part of whatever out there. That is very disturbing to me. I think we need to correct that situation. I don't know what it looked like, but I think you guys need to have a discussion about it. And my other issue is, I'm having a brain freeze. Yeah, my other issue is just the way that, I know, the public is coming to address the Ethics and Accountability Board and just all over the place with coming and speaking. It seemed like they would come to you personally as the a bonds person and have a discussion with you about whatever concerns. It just seemed like the protocol would be to go to the ombudsman, file a complaint that way, versus every time y'all open up y'all doors for the Ethics and Accountability Board, y'all got members of the public that come from City Council to the Ethics and Accountability Board, and you guys are basically going through what some of us have to go through here at City Council, and it's unfortunate, and I feel for y'all, but I just think if y'all can work with redirecting them to the right, and I think I hear some of you guys like, y'all gotta file a complaint, y'all gotta do this, cause going verbally making accusations and calling people out during the Ethics and Accountability Board, I just don't think that's getting anything done. I just think there should be a better way to handle that, and y'all should be there to get the business done and look at what's on y'all agenda and take care of that. So those were my two major concerns about that. Other than that, thank you, and you got a lot on your plate, and my hat go off to you for doing the kind of stuff that you have to deal with and be a one-man show. Thank you.
Yeah, Judy, and I'm going to say this. I think this council needs to be the last one to tell anybody on the Ethics and Accountability Board to do and say anything with the names I have been called by members up here. So I do want to say this, Ms. Shackson. I think that one thing, and Mr. Harris, I think it's beneficial that you get the charter and it to be read, you know, because I watched the last meeting, and if we're saying stick to the charter, we don't follow the charter up here. So it's really hypocritical for us to tell you to follow the charter, and they don't. I'm in court now, and it looks pretty good for me. So I want to say with your board, Ms. Shackson, I think it's because it came back. So you're really setting your own, Ms. Little, I should say, Mrs. Little, you're setting your own standard. You do need the equipment to run properly. You shouldn't have to keep begging for it. I would like to have a copy of the contract I don't know if you need to give it to the clerk so that we can have a copy of the contract that states you're supposed to be, or Mr. King is responsible. That's ludicrous. Why is he doesn't even get paid? Why would he be signing a contract to be responsible for the P card of the ombudsperson who has been paid by the city?
Absolutely, I agree. None of us get paid.
Yeah, it
So-
doesn't make sense.
We were trying to figure that, honestly, we were trying to figure that one out as well.
I'm gonna say
especially
whatever
for
I
the
want to
women.
say, and I'm gonna tell you up here with some of these people, because the day over here, I'm talking, and I'm quiet when they were talking. You can hear all this chit chatter, just disrespectful. Disrespectful. And I want to say this. I watched it when you stated about removing the 2 council people. The charter states another way to do that. You need to have in your budget an attorney that you can use that's separate from the city attorney. You need to have that. You need to have that so that you can make good decisions, so that you can be non-biased. And then when you read the charter, I don't think that it would have, occurred that way. A person still has a First Amendment right to hold a sign. You have a First Amendment right to still speak. With me being removed, they thought Rule 29.3 didn't apply, and it does apply. You never lose your First Amendment right. So for them to complain that a person is holding a sign, they're still residents, and they live in this ward. We know they live in this city because they are appointed to that ward. So when you go to silencing people's voice because you don't like them, you need to know what the charter is. And I think we have to not only read it, we have to comprehend it, and maybe you as a board can discuss it. Because there are certain key things, like you're getting these complaints, and some of the complaints that you're getting are generally in the same area. You get council members that come and complain. I didn't like our budget process last year because we didn't have enough time to even cover all the departments. So I think that how do you improve within that department, the board and the ombudsman, for your best practices? You need to come together for that, and that is important. What are your best practices? And I'm gonna tell you, according to section 3-208, all departments in the city in Flint are supposed to give departmental reports, and they don't do it quarterly. We don't get them. So that's in the charter, page 29. So I hope you get what you need to be supportive. It's been since this office in 2019 with Ms. Tanae Dorsey that I know it has been difficult. That's 5 years. We should have this taken care of now. This should not be at this point where you're still saying, I need a copier. It should not. That is petty and it's ridiculous. And your attorney, have you all met with the attorney?
Yes, ma'am. So just to let you know, as far as the contract goes with the independent counsel, I'm not sure of all the details that she negotiated with the city attorney, but from what I felt from the last meeting is that if her roles need to be expanded, that's already in the contract to allow those things for her role to be expanded. And then also it helps out that Attorney Skillman also was a Ethics and Accountability Board member for the city of Detroit as well. So she's helping us in getting training and things of that nature, so.
And that would
yes,
be under
ma'am.
your professional services that you asked for, Ms. Little?
That would be a part of it, yes.
Okay, and that was 20,000, I believe?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because we see that the board needs it, and the board, to be effective, needs to have the proper training.
Yes, ma'am.
It does. But I would say, be very careful when we're taking away people's First Amendment right to protest and freedom of speech. You can't take that. And if you take it, people are going to sue, and they have a right to freedom of speech, because it becomes a very slippery slope. And when you start taking away people's rights of the Constitution, you can't do that.
Well, just to let you know, just Councilwoman Burns, just to let you know, nothing was done personally or maliciously intent. It was never done from that point of view at all. The point of view was from the board's point of view as a whole versus integrity. But in our training that I got from Attorney Skillman about 2 years ago, that was actually one of the protocols that we were told as Ethics and Accountability Board members that, like, for instance, we really can't go in regards to those issues. However, And I've been here before, and I've stated things, and I've been called out on the carpet, like for instance, when I called out the city in regards to the flooding that happened last year back in February, and they said that I was being unethical. But when I spoke, I said I'm not speaking as a board member, I am speaking as a resident of the 8th Ward of the city of Flint. And by doing that, that gave me all the power and authority that I need to do to act as a resident. And so but that comes through, that's with training. That comes through understanding and through time. And so we've been having a hard time as a board trying to get that, but now we're on the right track.
And I think before the decision that you put the motion on the floor, I know there's you want to make sure that you're within the Open Meetings Act and not breaking that.
Yes, ma'am.
But when you do a motion from the floor like you did not afford the 2 members due process at all. You did not. You put it on the floor, it was as if they were ambushed, when one wasn't even there. And there is a due process. And due process is something that I'm saying is just not followed very much. Even when it came to, we can say, going back to Councilman Mays, he was removed. He was not given due process. And I stated that on the record then. He was never given his due process. So when you do it with your board, be careful. We can't afford, we're saying $750,000 to outside attorneys, not including our inside attorneys. So before you do it, ask an attorney, can you do it? And someone who has read our charter, can you remove those board members? And in the charter, it states that because that the city council elected them, that it should come back to the city council. And doing it from now, and then after that, your meeting went haywire.
It was haywire before that, but.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, thank you.
Madam,
Go, I have just 1 minute, and then you can close up. Ms. Little, I was just thinking, have you thought about doing an intern? I know that Mr. Moore has brought in interns. Go to Mott and get a secretarial student or something to help you with that, with your paperwork.
Okay.
And to keep track of things. That's an idea. I'm throwing it out there. Go ahead, Dr. Lewis.
That's a good idea.
all right, so thank you all for staying, and just wanted to be clear and clarify what was said. Per the audio of the meeting, you put a motion on the floor for 1 board member, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, because I heard my colleague says 2. Okay, so I heard 1 board member, thank you. I know we have such an odd relationship with the truth. And so, well, we also want to be clear too, whenever we are appointed to a board, especially a board with such a high authority, we must realize that
Councilwoman Lewis, don't
we
stop
must
that
we
mess.
must
You have a
realize,
problem with the truth.
Miss-
She has a problem with the truth.
Miss Burns.
So you need to get her, because I don't
Ms. Burns,
appreciate, number one, her saying,
it's her
I
time.
did not attack her character, Judy. She attacked my character.
She's
I have
out
a
of
problem with
line.
Judy, when she is a habitual,
She's out of
pathological
line.
liar. This is
Thank
a
you.
non-conforming.
We're out of line.
Read the charter
Thank you
and
so
understand
much.
it.
So,
Crazy.
as a council member, just as a professional in this body, I understand the difference between freedom of speech and being disorderly. And unfortunately, we have a lot of disorderly conduct, and the most recent disorderly conduct was pointed out by members of your board. Excuse me, they were as members of your board. And so, I mean, that's just unacceptable. And like you said, it couldn't go with training, but it needs to be an understanding. And there should be an understanding that you cannot be disorderly, and you can't serve on the board and be biased, because that will hinder your job as serving on the Ethics and Accountability Board. If you're going to be biased by holding up signs, doing dances or whatever that you're doing, speaking out negatively, then that looks like that you shouldn't be on this board, which has been commissioned to do a lot of things per charter. And so just wanted to bring that out. And lastly, what I would like to see next time we come back, I would like to see a breakdown of the professional services. I would like to see what that will be.
Ms. Little, if you could submit that to Mr. Moore or to Ms. Donahue, so that she can disseminate that that would eliminate a callback.
Yeah, that'll be fine. And also your copier, if it look like that, it should go under copying services. So if we could just see what that will reflect in copying services, since you want a copier. And then also a breakdown of your education, training, and conferences. And that's it.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I
Thank
hope it
you.
was painless.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Have a good evening.
Same to you.
Thank you.